to you from China International Vegetable Science and Technology Fair. So right now we're located in the Shouguang, East China's Shandong province. This is the alleged capital city of vegetables. So as you can see around, we're surrounded by green leaves. And most impressive of all, there's some tomato trees behind me. You can see that this is not the apple tree in the story of Adam and Eve. This is actually a giant tomato tree. And the most amazing part of all is that it is actually planted without soil. It is planted by the entire box of nutrient solutions. So as you can see, this the bulwark of this tree is really sturdy. It's really strong, and a lot of by branches and a lot of fruits coming out of it. So this is a perfect example, or the preliminary example, of the science and technology exemplified by today's exposition show. So you can take a look, you can count how many tomatoes are there on these branches. It's very fruitful and fertile. So, but, you know, as a matter of fact, this tomato tree is actually not used as a very feasible or practical use of, you know, applied to the nowadays agricultural production, basically for the ornamental or aesthetically pleasing use. But now we're gonna see some of the other technologies that's gonna use as a feasible and practical agricultural purposes. So please follow me. So now here we're gonna come to another section of the plantation. Actually, it's a vertical plantation of the sweet potatoes. You know, during the traditional farming, basically, the sweet potatoes are planted in the soils or on the grounds. But this is actually very, very much different. It is planted in the air. And just as the tomato tree with its seed, it is planted in the box of nutrient solutions. So this way it is more efficient, not only as resources as concerned, but also with regard to the space. Because the local expert told me that as in the traditional farming of sweet potatoes, it had to be planted in the soil, so all the by branches had to be cut off. But in this, you know, relatively new way, it had to be planted in the air. So there's do not have to you do not have to trouble yourself with the problem of space. So this kind of production is, you know, quickly applied to mass production and be promoted to the nowadays agricultural cultivation. So this is quite an impressive sight, isn't it? So after this, you know, very impressive sight, very, you know, eye-catchy sight, we're gonna see some of the other technology has been applied to nowadays Chinese agricultural production. You know, long established as a, you know, ancient agricultural society, China has the long history of, you know, safeguarding its food security. You know, or back in the time, for a lot of emperors, you know, put the agricultural before the commerce itself, or actually, in nowadays, the Chinese government and people still put their food security in mind. So the scientific or the technological advance in this regard has been put to top priority. So we're gonna move a little bit quickly. This is kind of like a greenhouse. And with regard to why Shouguang has been regarded as the capital of the vegetable, it is because back in 1980s, it's been one of the first places in China that applied the use of technology of greenhouses, so they can produce all those fruits and vegetables despite the change of seasons. So you can taste the fruits, in the southern part of China, where it's rarely used and it's rarely edible in northern China, and now it can be, massively put on the dinner table of the common people. Because, as you can see, this the colorful peppers, and also the grus. Yeah, these are the yellow peppers, green peppers and red peppers, things like that. And you can see that surrounded by me, this is another way of new farming, because this, I would say, eggplants has been planted also soillessly. It's been planted, supported by the nutrients in the pipelines, so that they do not have to, get out of their way to climb from the soil up to the brackets. Save a lot of trouble, indeed. And here comes a lot of spices, I would say, with various colors. And it is said that the production amount of this has been enhanced at a very great fashion because of the way it has been cut off. So, I guess a lot of you guys have watched the story or listened to the story of the fairy tales of Cinderella. Dashing to the pumpkin carriages and then leaving the crystal shoes behind. So here is where the story, fairy tales, come into reality about the pumpkin carriage. This huge pumpkin that weighed over 200 kilograms to 250 kilograms. Yeah, I think it's going to be very popular during the season of Halloween. And basically, after 100 days of growth, it will just burst to the ground and grow into its full maturity to what you're seeing right now. So I think maybe the Disneyland should buy one of those and put it into the castle of Cinderella. Just a thought. So, but according to the local expert, this thing is not very tasty. So basically, for the aesthetically pleasing purposes or the ornamental purposes. So you can see that vegetables or food nowadays for Chinese people, they're just not just for eating, but also for a sense of culture, for a sense of humor, for a sense of creativity. Okay, turning to the next stop, here is the pound. It's actually puppy pound, but only with fish, so it's a fish pound. So what is so special about this fish pound? Yeah, it is filled with all kinds of goldfishes, but what's so amazing about it is that it's actually in a small ecosystem that can recycle itself, recycle the wastewater to the plants at the back. So it became kind of like a small one end to another small ecosystem. The wastewater from the fish pound will go to the irrigation system back in the vegetables, And after the vegetables absorb all those nutrients or the excrements of the fish, it will go back, all the water will go back to the fish pond itself. So it will save like energy, save water, and save the fertilizers. So it's very economic. But according to the curator, this kind of system is still during the pilot research, so it's currently not massively applied to actual use. But I think that day will not be that far. And if you look upward, you can see all these plants, all these flowers has been moving from one point to another in a very steadily rate. This is kind of like I would say rotation cultivation or rotation planting, so that all the flowers and the plants could get the sunshine in an evenly fashion. Talking about the sense of equality, isn't it? And it saves a lot of space if you just hang in the air, isn't it? So, so China is basically an agricultural society for over, I would say, 3,000 years. So nowadays, China has 160 million hectares of land dedicated to vegetable growing. And Chinese farmers, every day, they have 300,000 metric tons of pesticides and 60 million tons of fertilizers using in their everyday agricultural production. So it is kind of like both inefficient and environmentally devastating. So what we're going to see afterwards are the so-called plant factory. We're going to use this kind of efficiency to its utmost. And what is it going to like? Please follow me. So here is the plant factory. You can control the sunshine, you can control the light, the humidity, the temperature, and the density of the carbon dioxide at the same time in this very small environment, using the LED lights and vertical planning principle. So you're seeing this kind of like all these cabbages, growing happily. And all these things is controlled by the computer. You can, manipulate it anytime you want. So in the traditional farming, the vegetables will grow like, these cabbages will grow like from 30 to 60 days. That is one cycle. But here, it only takes 30 to 35 days. So it is more efficient and actually more clean because it is located in a germless environment without the contamination, without the compromise in the airs or the water. So, and here is another version of a plant factory. You can see the color of the light is a little bit different from what I've seen on the other side of the aisle. This is because there are the different species of cabbages, so they require different degree of sunlight. So basically you can individualize individualize all the conditions by yourself, just like in the God's view of the plants. So here we have seen a lot of very mature technologies that have been applied to. Some of them has been applied, some of them not, to the actual use. And here's another one. You can see, you can guess what it is. It's very strange. It's been placed on a giant tube. It seems like small oranges, but I guess it is not. So actually, there are also small potatoes. So what is so amazing about this giant tube? We're gonna see the interior of this tube. You can see how it actually works. Because this is called the mist cultivation. It's also kind of like another genre of the soilless cultivation. It just only uses for use mist as an exchange. So, here is the revealing moment. You can see the interior of this tube. All the water has been, vaporized, and all these roots of the tomatoes, you can see it very clearly. And it's been placed as this for basically two reasons. First, it's because it is very resource efficiently, and second is because you can examine the roots of the plants anytime you want, see if it's been compromised by the pests or it has some disease itself. And basically the tomato here will grow faster than traditional ones. It will grow like 2 months from the seed to the maturity, while the traditional one will take like 3 months. So I think we get the gist of the display of very cutting-edge technologies of the Vegetable Science and Technology Expo here in Shouguang, Shandong Province. And now we're gonna go through the other side, the dark side of the moon. That is the culture of the vegetable that Chinese people had created out of these things on the dinner table. So please follow me. So as I have said, to Chinese, vegetables mean more than just food, but also the culture, the sense of humor and creativity. And we can see how they combine the vegetables to something they see into the Western world. First is a sculpture of Archimedes, basically exemplifying the famous quote, "Give me a place to stand on, and I shall move the world." But you see very closely, it is actually made of beans. Exactly, the red beans and the peanuts. So, and then afterwards, here comes the Notre Dame de Paris. That is the famous monument in Paris. And it's also completely made of grains, the rice and the peanuts. What do you think of the resemblance? I hope there's no Quasimodo hiding behind it. And if there is one, I think he's made of pumpkin, definitely. And here come the Newton and the apple. Of course, that is the red beans. But the apple is not an actual one. Sir Isaac Newton, made of beans. Don't know what I'm gonna think of it. And here's the monument, this one. It's a pretty big one. You can guess what it is. It takes me a few minutes to figure it out. It is made entirely of corn and white beans. It is actually a monument, and I think it's an Arch of Triumph built in Tehran. The Islamic Republic of Iran can take a more generous picture of it. Still made of coins. So I think maybe the theme of this pavilion should be changed to Jack and the Magic Beans. All the things are made of beans. Okay, if you closely follow the TV series Game of Thrones, I think you'll be familiar with this sculpture. It's like the entrance of the city, free city of Bravos, but it's actually the prototype of it. That is the Colossus of Rhodes. But behind it, that is the lighthouse of the Alexandria. Basically, the ancient seven wonders of the world. Made of pumpkins and beans and apples. Yeah, it's a shame that it's been destroyed in I think it's an earthquake in Egypt. But it's been rebuilt by the Chinese farmers here. Talking about the sense of creativity. And wow, this one, the Hagia Sophia, the most monumental structure built in the Constantinople, the capital city of Byzantine Empire. And now it has been renovated into a mosque. You know, after the conquest of Constantinople in 1453, by the great Sultan of Muhammad II of the Ottomans. And now it's you know, much of a merry version of it, made of pumpkins and grains. Yeah, a lot of vegetables planted in front of it. And I think this one is very, very impressive. It's actually the north gate of the city of Babylon. You can see the actual measure of it. It's pretty high, but it's actually made of the green beans. Yeah, now the actual version of it has been stored in Berlin National Museum. Wow. I wonder what the Hammurabi the Great would think of it. His great masterpiece made in the grain. And afterwards, that is the Sacred Heart Cathedral in Paris also. I think it's in Montmartre. It's also very, very astonishing. You can see how they assemble the different colors and different shapes of the fruits and the vegetables into, and combining all these factors into one, you know, impressive monument. This is quite a test of creativity. Here's the story. It's very familiar to a lot of Chinese children about Leonardo da Vinci drawing the eggs. Actually, also the red beans, just like Sir Isaac Newton. And finally, you're gonna see more of a grandiose architecture. That is the National Theater of Vienna, where the walls and the straws, the music of straws, has been given birth to. Okay, just take a closer look at it. And also completely made out of peanuts and beans, has been planted with the flowers and the cabbages in front of it. So Okay, I think this is so much for today's show. I hope you enjoyed it. The China International Vegetable Science and Technology Fair. If you're interested in vegetable, the knowledge of it, or you just enjoy the flavor, you can come to Shouguang. Don't forget the name of this county, small county in East China's Shandong province, and see for yourself. Okay, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Okay, welcome to the new episode of Facebook and Twitter live show on Xinhua News Agency. This is Xu Zeyu reporting to you from China International Vegetable Science and Technology Fair. So right now we're located in the Shouguang, East China's